Arthur Finch surveyed the lobby of the Grand Majestic Hotel with the proprietary air of a monarch overseeing his court. For 15 years he had been the general manager, the meticulous custodian of this sanctuary of old-world luxury. Every gleaming brass fixture, every whisper of the bellhop's polished shoes on the marble floor, every precisely arranged bouquet of lilies was a testament to his unwavering standard of excellence. The Grand Majestic wasn't just a hotel. It was an experience, an escape from the vulgarities of the modern world. And Arthur was its vigilant gatekeeper. His gaze, sharp and critical, swept from the check-in desk to the concierge, missing nothing. He noted a faint scuff on a luggage trolley and made a mental note to reprimand the staff. He observed the quiet hum of wealthy guests, their conversations muted, their attire impeccable. This was the atmosphere he had so carefully cultivated, one of serene, apolitical neutrality, a haven of class. Then he saw it. Sitting in one of the plush velvet armchairs near the grand fireplace was a man who at first glance was unremarkable. He was perhaps in his late 50s, with graying temples and a face etched with the faint lines of someone who thought more than he spoke. He wore a simple tweed jacket, comfortable-looking trousers, and a pair of well-worn leather shoes. But it wasn't his understated attire that snagged Arthur's attention like a nail on silk. It was the hat on his head. It was a simple, dark blue baseball cap. Embroidered on the front, in stark white letters, was a single word: Vote. A coil of something hot and acrid tightened in Arthur's stomach. Blue. A blue hat. With that word on it. In this political climate, it wasn't just a hat. It was a billboard. A provocation. Arthur, a man who consumed a steady diet of cable news that confirmed his deepest anxieties about the direction of the country, saw the hat as a flag, planted on his pristine territory. It was a symbol of everything he believed was eroding the nation's character, the very principles of tradition and order he championed within the walls of his hotel. He felt a surge of righteous indignation. This man, with his quiet arrogance, had brought the noisy, divisive world of politics into Arthur's sanctuary. He was polluting the atmosphere, making a statement that was, in Arthur's mind, deliberately inflammatory. The Grand Majestic had a reputation to uphold, a clientele to protect from such unpleasantness. He imagined a wealthy donor to his preferred party checking in and seeing that blue hat, feeling unwelcome. The thought was intolerable. His decision was instantaneous. He would handle this, personally. Straightening his tie and smoothing the front of his perfectly tailored suit, Arthur strode across the lobby. His footsteps were silent but purposeful. As he approached, he plastered on a thin, professional smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Good afternoon, sir," Arthur began, his voice a smooth blend of courtesy and steel. "I am Arthur Finch, the general manager of the hotel." The man looked up from the newspaper he was reading. His eyes were a calm, steady gray. "A pleasure to meet you, Mr. Finch." His voice was quiet, level. "I'm afraid I must address a small matter of hotel policy," Arthur continued, his smile tightening. "We strive to maintain an environment of comfort and neutrality for all our guests. As such, we have a strict policy against political paraphernalia or messaging within the public areas of the hotel." The man glanced down at his own chest, then back up, a flicker of bemusement in his eyes. "Political paraphernalia." Arthur gestured stiffly towards the blue cap. "Your hat, sir. We consider it a form of political expression, which can be disruptive to the serene atmosphere we promise our patrons." The man looked at the word "vote" on his hat, as if seeing it for the first time. "It's a civic encouragement, Mr. Finch. I believe it's a non-partisan sentiment, the very foundation of our country, wouldn't you agree?" The calm, rational response only stoked the flames of Arthur's conviction. This was a classic tactic of their side feigning innocence while being deliberately provocative. "Be that as it may," Arthur said, his voice losing its silken edge. "The color and the current political climate lend your hat a very specific, and I must say, partisan connotation. Several guests have already expressed their discomfort." This was a lie, but a necessary one, he told himself. He was acting on behalf of the guests who were surely thinking it. The man slowly took the hat off, holding it in his hands. He looked at Arthur with an unblinking, analytical gaze. "No one has said a word to me, Mr. Finch, and I find it hard to believe that this simple message is a violation of any written policy. Perhaps you could show me this policy in your guest agreement." The request was a direct challenge to his authority. Arthur felt the blood thumping in his ears. He was the manager. His word was policy. "Sir, our policies are in place to ensure a first-class experience. I do not need to justify them to you," Arthur snapped, his voice rising enough to turn a few heads nearby. "I am asking you, as a courtesy, to remove the hat, or, if you prefer, you can check out of the hotel. We will, of course, refund tonight's stay." He had done it. He had drawn the line. He felt powerful, a guardian protecting his kingdom from invasion. The man's continued composure was infuriating. He wasn't angry, or loud, or defensive. He was simply watching, observing Arthur with an unnerving stillness, as if he were a scientist studying an insect. "I think you are making a profound mistake, Mr. Finch," the man said, his voice still unnervingly quiet. "I would strongly advise you to reconsider your position. Take a moment, breathe, and let us pretend this conversation never happened." This condescending attempt to de-escalate was the final straw. It was a threat veiled in calm language. How dare this man, this Democrat, threaten him in his own hotel? "There is nothing to reconsider," Arthur declared, his voice now loud enough to carry across the marble expanse. He saw the front desk staff freeze, their eyes wide. A couple checking in paused to stare. Good. Let them see. Let them see that the Grand Majestic does not tolerate such behavior. You have two options. Put the hat away and remain a guest, or leave the premises immediately. If you refuse, I will have security escort you out. The man sighed, a soft, weary sound. He placed the hat back on his head, a gesture of deliberate, quiet defiance. He then looked past Arthur towards the main entrance. "That won't be necessary." Arthur bristled. "I assure you it is. I will not have our hotel's decorum flouted." He turned, ready to signal for his security chief, when he saw who the man was looking at. A woman was hurrying through the revolving doors, her face a mask of frantic apology. It was Eleanor Albright, the regional vice president of operations for the Elysian Group, the parent company that owned the Grand Majestic and 24 other luxury properties. Arthur's heart skipped a beat. Miss Albright's presence was unannounced. "Mr. Harrison," she exclaimed, rushing forward, completely ignoring Arthur. "I am so terribly sorry for the delay. My flight was held on the tarmac. We have the Celestial Suite ready for you. I hope the staff has been taking good care of you since you arrived." Arthur's mind struggled to connect the dots. Mr. Harrison, the Celestial Suite? He watched, frozen, as the man in the blue hat stood up. "My welcome has been illuminating, Eleanor," Mr. Harrison said, his calm gaze finally shifting from Arthur to the vice president. Eleanor beamed, oblivious. "Wonderful. I trust Mr. Finch has made you feel at home." She finally turned to Arthur, her smile expectant. "Arthur, I don't believe you've been formally introduced. This is Mr. James Harrison." The name didn't register. Arthur simply stared, confused. Eleanor's smile faltered as she sensed the tension in the air. She looked from Arthur's rigid, furious posture to Mr. Harrison's dispassionate expression. "Is there a problem?" Mr. Harrison answered, his voice devoid of any emotion. "Mr. Finch was just explaining his hotel's policy on political paraphernalia. He has demanded I leave the premises due to this hat." The color drained from Eleanor Albright's face. She looked as if she had been struck by lightning. Her eyes darted from the blue vote hat to Arthur's face, her expression a horrified cocktail of disbelief and sheer terror. "Arthur, what have you done?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "I was upholding the hotel's standards, Miss Albright." Arthur defended himself, though a cold dread was beginning to seep into his bones. This guest was making a political statement. "The Elysian Group was sold last month." "Arthur," Eleanor said, her words hitting him like physical blows. "The sale was finalized Tuesday. Mr. James Harrison is not a guest. He is the new chairman of the board. He is the man who signed your paycheck last week. He owns this hotel. He owns all of it." The world tilted on its axis. The hushed sounds of the lobby, faded into a deafening roar in Arthur's ears. He looked at the man in the tweed jacket and the simple blue hat, the man he had just tried to eject, with self-righteous fury. Mr. Harrison, the billionaire investor whose photo had been on the cover of a business magazine Arthur had thrown away just last week. He hadn't recognized him. He hadn't even considered the possibility. Mr. Harrison's calm gray eyes now held a glint of Arctic cold. He wasn't looking at a manager anymore. He was looking at a liability. He spoke, and his quiet voice commanded the entire space. "Ms. Albright," he began. "My first official act as chairman is to assess the assets I've acquired. My primary asset isn't the marble or the chandeliers, it's the staff, it's the leadership." He took a step toward Arthur, who felt rooted to the floor by sheer horror. "I don't care about your politics, Mr. Finch," Harrison said, his voice cutting through the silence. "Republican, Democrat, anything in between, it is of no consequence to me. What I care about is judgment. I care about professionalism. I care about a manager who understands that his job is to welcome every guest, not to appoint himself the arbiter of acceptable thought." He gestured around the lobby. "You chose to publicly humiliate a customer based on a biased assumption. You invented a policy to justify your own prejudice. You failed to de-escalate. You failed to listen. You failed in every conceivable way to do your job. You are not a guardian of this hotel's standards. You are a threat to its reputation and its bottom line." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. Then he delivered the final devastating sentence. "You're fired, Mr. Finch, effective immediately. Have security escort him out." Eleanor Albright, pale and shaken, nodded mutely. The security chief, who had been hovering nearby, now looked at Arthur with pity and apprehension. Arthur stood there, his world dismantled in less than 5 minutes. The power, the pride, the self-righteous certainty, it all evaporated, leaving behind a hollow, sickening shame. He was no longer the king of the Grand Majestic. He was just a man who had lost everything over a simple blue hat, and the monstrous assumptions he had allowed to fester in his own mind. As 2 security guards gently but firmly took his arms to lead him away from the lobby he once commanded, his last sight was of Mr. Harrison, placing the vote hat back on his head and calmly turning to Miss Albright to say, "Now, Eleanor, perhaps you can show me to my suite."